This is a talk about the spiral dynamics color of yellow, the color of open knowledge and understanding. Dear YouTubian listeners, this is Wake Up with a video about spiral dynamics and the color of yellow. There was a lot of interest in the previous spiral dynamics videos, and indeed it is a very fascinating concept. It is a concept, it is a model, there's no objective truth in it, but it's a very fascinating and helpful model because it is not so much about the individual than about the masses, about large groups of people. There are in spiral dynamics first tier and second tier colors. The first tier colors about the development of personality. Personality of an individual or of a group of people, a country, the world, the whole population of the whole earth, and so on. The scale is up to you. And then there's the second tier, and the second tier colors, which are also 6, are about the development of consciousness. Awakening can happen in any color of the first or second tier. And the color you or a group of people is centered in very much influences the experience of awakening. For example, you can awaken in blue in the religion and order color, and then your experience of awakening is very religious. Or you can awaken in green and then your experience is very flower power, Timothy Leary-like. Or you can awaken in yellow and then it's all about knowledge, it's Ken Wilber-like. The fact alone that you're watching YouTube videos about spiral dynamics could mean that you're centered in yellow. But a very small percentage of all people is centered in yellow, so much more likely your center is in green. But if your center is in green, a part of your consciousness is already moving towards yellow. Just as beige is the first color of the first tier and it is all about survival, physical survival, yellow is the first color of the first tier and is also about survival, but more about survival of someone who sees things in a much larger framework, much larger scale, much more open and sharing, and thus has to find his or her way in a society which is all about me, my, mine, the personality, the ego. I first and after me, who cares? This me first attitude and everyone else can go fuck themselves. That's the attitude of the first 5 first tier colors. In green it starts to change. In green you see that the environment is also a part of the whole thing and everyone is sitting in the same boat. But you're still only thinking it. Many people who are centered in green become kind of fanatic about the green movement, about Amnesty International and World Wildlife Fund and so on. Greenpeace, the Green Party and so on. Being a vegetarian or a vegan. So the consciousness is still very limited to a certain aspect. While in yellow, suddenly everything opens up and you have the whole buffet to pick from. The world is your oyster. But you don't misuse it anymore for your own sake, but you want to do something that's good for everyone. And spiral dynamics itself is a very yellow concept. Yellow is fascinated by theories. Theories that can explain the world and that go beyond the scientific orange. And the internet is the playground of the yellow mind. Open source information, open source knowledge, open source software, open source books, open source movies, open source documentaries, and so on. YouTube is the perfect example of what is possible and what yellow people like. Of course, any color can be hijacked by red blue and orange megalomaniacs, which has been the case of the green movement to some degree, and also a little bit of the yellow. Afterwards, it's very difficult because there's no understanding. The red, blue, and orange-centered people have no understanding what turquoise and coral and so on could possibly be about, because they're too much concerned with themselves, and that is not a concern anymore of turquoise and beyond. But yellow is still trying to find its way in a new world. You're a stranger in a strange land. Everything looks the same, but is very different. That is also why so many people mistake yellow for awakening. Yellow is a good start in the right direction, but it's not awakening. It's just opening up. It's just getting out with one leg out of the ego trap. But to climb fully out of the ego trap, out of the catch-22, usually happens in coral. But it is so easy to stay in yellow. Yellow is very comfortable. You can do almost anything the way you did before, only with a wider view of things, with a deeper insight. And you can still feel very smug and superior. This only starts to dissolve in turquoise, where it's about community. The way I present spiral dynamics is mainly for people who have never heard about it before, but also I want to include some stuff that is also interesting for people who have studied spiral dynamics before. So you can go into depth a lot more, and there are so many more details. But I think it's still, the basics is to understand the colors. There's so much misunderstanding about the second tier colors. And even about the first tier colors, there are so many people who talk about spiral dynamics who are centered in blue or orange. For them, it's a business model. It's a business consulting or political consulting tool. So the view of people who use it in that way is usually very limited and one-sided. While spiral dynamics itself is a yellow theory, so it's second tier. It's not only about the ego anymore, but about consciousness. But it's still very theoretical and thus does not appeal to everyone, unfortunately. But it's a very, very good theory that can make you understand, first of all, yourself, and secondly, also why other people think and act a certain way, or societies. There are many more great YouTube videos about spiral dynamics than books. Because, of course, for yellow theory, the internet is the perfect medium. Now, the jump from green to yellow is a most difficult one. It's often referred to as a glass ceiling. You can see through, but you cannot get through it. It's very hard to get through this barrier. But one day you're suddenly through and you think, that's how it is. And the world becomes much more interesting. And then you usually get stuck for many years or even decades in exploring and accumulating knowledge and wisdom. Which is okay for some years, but otherwise it's just another way to lose yourself. There's an indefinite amount of knowledge, and you cannot possibly collect and understand all of it. Our lifetimes are too short for that. It's very helpful to nurture your visionary and your active side, and to find other people who are like you. That will be your step towards turquoise, the next color. I repeat what I say in every video about spiral dynamics. No color is better than another color. It's just different perspectives. But since the perspectives get wider and wider, there's an advantage, of course. The disadvantage of yellow is that you feel a little bit lost and lonely. And a sign that often crops up for people who have entered yellow recently or a few years ago is that suddenly some of their friends kind of fall away in one way or another. Because the focus of these friends has stayed the same, while your focus has changed 180 degrees. You're looking in the opposite directions and they wonder, what's up with this guy? And you wonder, what's with them? They're always talking about the same crap, complaining and not doing anything about it. Now, green and yellow are also the colors that usually look for guidance, spiritual guidance. Green because he or she wants someone to tell them where to go, like some kind of superego. Yellow because there's the distinct feeling that there's more to reality than has been understood and experienced so far. So for yellow, the teachers are not real idols or masters, but just people who are a little bit more advanced because they have a bit of a head start. But there's no feeling of that you have to follow a guru. Following a guru is something that is very strong in the first tier, because you think the guru is something like a god, and to bask in their presence will also make you so. In the second tier, it's all about consciousness, and it's clear to you that everyone is the same. There's no difference. There's equal value. And some people, as I said, have a head start, and you can learn from them. And the more people are conscious, the better for everyone. So there's no more competition. Competition is a concept of the first tier. If you find anyone who claims to be in the second tier or to be awakened or enlightened and is talking about competition, it's a sure sign he or she is not in the second tier and is not awakened and not enlightened. Enlightenment, even, it's so far away from competition, the word is not even intelligible anymore. An enlightened being has no reason to want anything anymore. While awakening is kind of sitting between two stools. The one stool is being asleep and the other one is being enlightened. And you kind of in between, you can see both sides and you can identify with both sides, but you're not either. And that is a bit similar to yellow, and that is why there's so much confusion and so many people who reach yellow think, oh, now I'm awakened. But they're not. They just dip their foot into the sea of consciousness. But it's the right first step. Okay, that's it for now about yellow and about spell dynamics. Thank you for watching and listening. Thank you for subscribing. Hit the bell button. And see you soon with another video about spell dynamics. Turquoise, the true color of community.